Hello, my name is Joshua Keith, and this is theburningcoal.com, a website dedicated to God's glory, His grace, and our response to it. Today, I would like to do a Monday motivation on the idea of purposing. I think this is a really good one for us to look at as we start closing out the year, because a lot of times at this point in time, we start thinking about big ideals. We think about the generous spirit that comes with the holidays. We think about a new year and what we're going to do with that new year and the type of people that we're hoping to be. And I think it's good for us to make sure that we're giving those type of thoughts the type of dedication and depth that they really deserve. And I think a good example of this is what we see in Daniel. In Daniel chapter 1, verse 8, it talks about this young man named Daniel. He had just been brought from the land of Judah, he had been brought into the kingdom of Babylon, and he was going to be a high ranking official in Babylon, and he was being put to work under the king of Babylon. Part of that included eating from the king's table. And what we see here is that Daniel takes a look around and he sees what's going to happen. And he realizes that this is going to put him in a compromising situation. This is going to cause him to do things that his conscience and his understanding of the scriptures do not allow. And so notice what Daniel does. It says, "But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's delicacies, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the chief of the eunuchs that he may not defile himself." Notice that Daniel was not accidentally righteous before God, but instead that it was something that he purposed in his heart. He took a look at the situation, he decided what would happen, and then he acted on that purpose, on that resolve. I think sometimes what we hope will happen is that we don't actually have to purpose in our heart, that we don't have to resolve, but instead that we accidentally fall into the habits, the obedience that we want, that we will have the holiness we desire because of things that just work out that way. But I think what this example clearly shows us is that's not the case at all. It's something that must be decided and purposed in our hearts if that's the type of person that we want to be. And so from this, there's a few takeaways that I think would be good for us to consider. The first one is taking some time to reflect. A lot of times we might not be purposing in our hearts because we may not really be taking the time to see what is going on in our lives, what is wrong. There may be discord and disharmony in us. There may be that in our relationships, especially of the people closest to us. But we may be so used to the way things are that we don't realize how bad it has gotten. And so rather than just allowing those things to stay how they are, we need to take a step back and we need to reflect on who we are, how we're spending our time, what it is that we're doing, the mindset that we have. And in particular, we need to be comparing that to God's word and seeing if it matches. And if we're not careful, we've gone away from what it is that God would want us to do. And so, if that's the case, then what we need to do is we need to choose to change those things. And again, this does not happen by accident. Sometimes it may be that we need to set up a system in place, we need to set up accountability, we need to have discussions with those closest to us about how we can enact these changes in our lives. But we need to understand again that this is not going to happen by accident. That we have to decide to get out of the patterns that are keeping us from being the holy people of God. And so we're going to have to choose what it is that we want to be. And then we also notice that Daniel practiced follow through. Daniel didn't just purpose in his heart not to defile himself and then go to the guard and say, "Hey, we can't do this." And the guard said no. He's like, "Well, I purposed, I tried, it didn't happen." Daniel persisted. Daniel was not going to let anything stop him. And we see this being a characteristic of Daniel throughout his entire life. And so, one of the things that we need to make sure is that when we choose what we need to be, that we don't allow ourselves to go off course, that we don't just allow those things to be a week of change and then we're back to the way things were. And next year at this exact same time, we're going to reflect and we're going to see the exact same picture, if not something worse. That's not the idea of resolving to change. When we're resolving to change, we're going to do whatever it takes. And so we need to follow Daniel's example. I hope this lesson blesses you in your walk in his kingdom.